Hi everyone, we'd like to welcome you to today's webinar. Today we'll be discussing measuring PPC return. Are your ad dollars going to waste? Today we are presenting the very own Jeff Baum, aka Jersey Jeff, aka JJ. He is the Associate Director of Paid Search, which we short form to ADOPS, or in his case, JDOPS. He's also a blogger on PPC Hero, and you could follow him on Twitter at JeffBaum71. I'm Roopa Carpenter, aka Roop Dog, and yes, that's the only nickname I have here. I'm an account manager, and you can follow me on Twitter as well at Roopa Carpenter. However, I'm not on Twitter that much, so just be forewarned about that.
You can join in our conversation today too. If you're on Twitter, just include the hashtag ThinkPPC in your tweets, or just use the webinar question box to send us any questions that you might have.
All right, so we're going to start with our first live poll question today. How long have you been in PPC? You can send your response to hashtag ThinkPPC. So A, less than 1 year, B, 1 to 3 years, C, 3 to 5 years, and D, 5+ years. JJ, what about yourself?
I would fall into the 5+ years category. I actually have about 10 years of experience now, so I've been called the senior citizen of PPC, the grandfather of PPC, and any number of other things that just frankly make me feel old.
Great. Well, I'm not as old as JJ in terms of PPC experience, so I would fit into, I've been in PPC for about a year or so, so I'd guess a seasoned account manager, I would say. All right, do we have the
I
results?
would say.
Oh, JJ, hey, look, you're in good company. So we have 35% in the 5+ years, and then kind of roughly split between 3 to 5 years and less than 1 year. So we have a good mix today, which is excellent. So here we have the
Okay,
second.
our second poll question is
Go for it, JJ. You can take this
it's
one.
we have Okay. We have our second poll question of the day. How do you manage your accounts? I manage it myself. I'm part of a team that manages it. I outsource my account management, or I'm rethinking how my account is managed. So, Rupa, when you're managing your accounts, in addition to just manually pulling levers, do you employ like any technology or any automation in your accounts?
Yes, absolutely. It's, I think, essential to kind of streamlining the process, becoming more efficient. We have a lot of tools and scripts that we have as part of Hero Pro that we use. To kind of watch the site, make sure the site is live, and if they're not, for example, Ad Guardian will make sure our campaigns aren't running. Running scripts just when you have so much volume, so many keywords, a script does it really quickly for you. You can kind of see where you need to make optimizations.
Excellent.
All
Okay, so
right.
the poll results are in, and it looks like I Manage It Myself is winning out with 61% of the vote, followed by part of a team that manages it with 33%. I outsource my account management at 6%, and right now no one is thinking about or rethinking how they're going to manage their accounts.
All right.
Okay, I'm going to kick off things today, talking about measuring PPC return and talking about just some leading indicators of whether my ad dollars are well spent or whether things might be a little off track and might need some adjustment. So when I was really thinking this out, I really boiled it down to 4 key metrics that I'm looking at right off the bat on a daily basis, and especially when I'm first launching an account, just to get an idea of where things are at. So one of the key areas that I'm looking at is cost per acquisition. The accounts that I manage are very cost per acquisition heavy, so making sure that those numbers are in line and towards goal is very important. So definitely an area that I keep an eye on. The next area that I'll look at, especially if I'm managing an e-commerce account, is revenue. Is the account bringing in enough revenue to sort of support the business and also support the PPC program. Along with revenue and cost per acquisition, if it calls for it, I'm also looking at return on investment. I've seen plenty of times throughout my career where a cost per acquisition could be in line, but the revenue could be low and not enough to sort of support the PPC program. I've seen other instances where our accounts have brought in very high revenue, but the ROI is not quite there, and that could erode away at whether those ad dollars are wisely spent or not. So it's hard to sort of look at all of these different metrics in its own narrow silo. You usually have to look at everything together in some sort of combination to get a true sense of where your account is headed. And just to kind of finish up the point is also looking at volume, whether it's sales volume, transactions, or lead volume. Are we bringing in enough sales or leads to be able to support what we're trying to do? That's a very key thing too. We run into a lot where we see high profitability, but we don't see the volume to support it. So, looking at all these indicators to me is a key takeaway to know whether my ad dollars are well spent. Next slide. Along with looking at my key indicators, I also look at conversions, and I wanted to kind of talk about this separately because there's a few different components that I'm sort of looking at here. I sort of break it down into the lead funnel purchase process, what's my conversion value or my order value, and what's my rate of conversion. So the first thing I need to know is, does my process work? Are my prospects able to get through the lead funnel? Are they able to complete a purchase? Is there any obstacles, whether it's technological or design, that's preventing that from happening? Because if we're spending all those dollars up front and we're meticulously picking out our keywords and writing our ads, but for some reason the process doesn't work, then all of that is to waste. So we need to make sure that we can get through a sales or lead funnel process. And then when we're talking about conversion value, that's very important because on a site, you could be selling high ticket items, low ticket items, something in between that. Even on the lead generation side, we could be generating leads that turn into clients that are low revenue clients or bringing in very low sales or services. Or maybe very high. So we need to really monitor that value and always look for ways to increase that average order value or that overall conversion value, because that's usually the make or break for a PPC program is how much that order value is. And then to sort of finish up the point is conversion rate. So if I know that people are getting through the process and the technology works, I need to understand the rate at which I'm bringing prospects through. And that tells me a lot about whether I need to make adjustments to make my keywords or ads more relevant, my landing pages more relevant, or whether or not I need to do more work on my lead funnel and purchase process, whether it's through conversion rate optimization or through any other account optimization. So the key takeaway here is when you're measuring your PPC and your ad dollars is not to forget about your landing pages or your website. It's really all part of PPC, and they need to be treated sort of all as one. So make sure that you're looking at this and making those adjustments to get the highest conversion rates and the highest conversion value possible to make your ad dollars work. The point that I want to drive home on this slide when we're talking about search funnels is non-converting clicks don't always translate into wasted ad dollars. And I think that's something that's very important to understand. Just a few years ago, before we were able to look at first click or last click attribution, we were only sort of able to look at what the last click did. And it was either my keywords converted or my campaigns converted or they didn't. And that's a very narrow way of looking at things. We understand now that our queries and our keywords are all sort of tied together, almost like an orchestra. Everyone sort of has their little job that they have to do. So we need to understand those keywords that aren't converting, or those campaigns that are maybe not converting, how they're contributing to the overall account. um, we could have keywords that are they're leading to sales, or some other conversion downstream, and we have to be very careful not to remove those from the mix, because we don't want to hurt the keywords on the other end that might be converting. If everything is a path and we remove part of the path, we're actually putting up obstacles along the way, for our customers to be able to complete a conversion. So before you make that decision to start turning off spend in areas of your account, make sure that you're going through the search funnel reports. And this screenshot is just sort of a highlight that you'll find right in your AdWords account, where you can add these columns to really understand that. So, unless you're seeing, zero assisted clicks or impressions or conversions, consider keeping your keywords live, because understand that everything has a relational effect. I also wanted to finish off just talking about GDN and mobile, and the way they contribute versus convert. So with search campaigns, we have a clear intent. A user goes to Google or one of the partners, or maybe even Bing, and they're typing in the search query. We understand they're in active buying mode, or they're in active research mode, and it's much easier for us to be able to influence all of that. But on the display network, for example, we have users who are not in active search mode. They're out on their sites doing other types of research, or doing it, whatever it is that they're doing, on those websites. And we're trying to pull them off and bring them into another conversation. So what we tend to see is generally higher cost per acquisitions and lower conversion rates. But what we have to understand is, and we can do this through search funnels, is Google, or is Google Display Network influencing search? So what we're looking for is, are we starting the conversation out on the display network, and are we able to translate that into more people that are searching at some point, whether it's later on in the day, or the day after, or the day after that, and whether they actually wound up converting off of a conversation that began on Google Display Network. So make sure to factor that into your analysis when you're deciding the value of your GDN campaigns. The same sort of goes for mobile too. It's a very interesting dynamic we have when we're talking about people that are, in the mobile space. We want them to convert, and we do see an awful lot of conversions, but we also have to understand what our audience is, and how a mobile campaign contributes even when it's not converting. So let's use an example of maybe a big box retailer, say Walmart. Uh, a user out a, on a desktop site, for example, they're more than likely to go to Walmart.com and search for a product and buy it. Where someone that's on the Walmart mobile page might be looking for a store locator, so they can go to a store and then they buy there, and then sales have actually come in through mobile. It's a little harder to measure, but it does have a lift, in the store. Or maybe we have a service where we do heavy call center transactions, and we have click-to-call campaigns where it's not exactly a one-to-one conversion. It's happening through your call center. So make sure that you have things that are in place to be able to measure that, so you can truly measure the value of your mobile campaigns. In PPC, we find things aren't as what they seem. So if we look at things too narrowly, we might be missing some key points and undervaluing and thinking that we have wasted spend when we actually have highly productive spend. So just keep all that in mind, and make sure you look at the whole before you make any decisions. The next point that I want to make is going sort of beyond just looking at conversions and profit, and actually looking about what we're learning in terms of market analysis. So when we're examining search queries or we're running our auction insight reports, we're getting great intelligence on consumer behavior or what our competitors are up to. So if we look at search queries, for example, we're learning how a person is looking for our services and what frame of mind they're in at that point. So being able to mine that data to understand how to make our PPC campaigns work even more efficiently and make our messages just a little bit sharper is well worth the investment in a few dollars a click to be able to get that type of intelligence back. We can even use that data to be able to fuel other marketing campaigns. So, understanding how a user searches and what terminology they're using could be used, for example, in an email campaign, or it could be used in your social media. So, just keep that in mind, that there's a lot of rich data there that you're able to get relatively cheap, that you can use to make your entire marketing campaign more profitable and more efficient. When we're talking about the auction insight report, we can go in for a keyword and know who our competitors are for those auctions that keyword is showing up in. So now we understand where they rank on the page, how aggressive they're bidding. Are they going for the top of the page, the side of the page, and where we sort of stack up against them. And then also knowing who the exact competitors are, then through tools like Keyword Spy or SpyFu, we can do some intelligence on them and figure out what keywords they're bidding on that we may not be bidding on. We can also find out what ad copy they're writing and generally figure out what they're doing differently that we can capitalize on, or maybe we can do differently or even better so we can beat out the competition when we're in all of these auctions and whatnot. And then I think the question that you have to ask yourself is, what's the value of this information to your organization? Is it worth the investment that you're making in PPC just to get that data back in relation to also everything else that you're working on, just trying to get conversions and gain profitability? Next slide. Then what I'm going to do is just wrap up by talking about how PPC influences some of the other channels in our inbound marketing campaign. So inbound marketing consists of so many different areas. So we have PPC, SEO, and email, and social. We're doing a webinar today, for example. Online videos. There's so many different things that are sort of fueling the marketing machine. PPC can help sort of fuel that, along with bringing in its own, set of conversions and revenue to the bottom line. Just to give you a quick story, a few years ago, I managed a campaign for a shoe manufacturer, and it was great. We were investing 20 cents, 50 cents a click, and we were getting $50, $100 orders. So we were really excited about that. But what we really found the real value was we were growing the size of the email list. So what was happening over time is we were building these repeat customers, and we were able to kind of track their entire history. So we knew that someone came in at a certain date and time and then made a PPC purchase, but then when we sent them a promo at Christmas time or Easter time, we were able to get them to purchase again. So PPC got them in the door, and then the other marketing channels were able to come in and keep them as a repeat customer. So it just sort of drives home the point that PPC is, it doesn't act in its own narrow little world. It's really part of a bigger whole. And if you can figure out how to make PPC work with your other marketing channels and make them work even better and more efficient, then you have scored a real victory. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to Roopa.
All right, thank you, JJ.
Mm-hmm.
So now that we've kind of got the overarching view of what things we should consider when we're trying to measure PPC return, we're going to now try to incorporate that into a case study of some accounts that we've had here at Hanapin. So here we have the first example. So let's say we have an e-commerce account. We're going to look at performance year over year for the same months, just for to make sure we're accounting for seasonality and things like that. So for June 2013, return on ad spend was 210%. And this past June 2014, it was 154%. So it decreased year over year. So which year had the better performance? Like JJ said, return on ad spend or ROI is definitely a great metric to look at to determine performance. So if you were to look at here, I'd figure most of you would determine that 2013 had the better performance. Moving on to example 2. So again, we have another e-commerce account. June 2013, they had 140 transactions with a revenue just under 25,000. And in June 2014, we increased transactions to 249 and with revenue over 31,000. So here we're touching on two different metrics, total revenue and just sales volume. So based on these metrics, which year had the better performance? I will gather that most of you will probably say that 2014 had the better performance. Now let's combine everything together. So now we have an e-commerce account where transactions are up year over year, revenue is up year over year, but return on ad spend is lower. So which year had a better performance? And we're actually going to turn this into a poll question. So for example 3, which year had a better performance? Was it 2013, 2014, I don't know, or it depends? So this is actually an account that I'm working on currently. It's interesting to think that you were doing so well in certain metrics, but then trying to figure out why the one metric, the return on ad spend, is down. And so, this is much of what I've been doing for the past few weeks, trying to analyze everything to determine really how successful is this account, where do we need to make optimizations and such. So let's see what everyone says. All right, so 36% says it depends. 11% says I don't know. Thanks for being very honest. 21% said 2014, and 32% said 2013. So my answer would be it depends, our very favorite answer to use here. So it depends because you need to understand what are the goals for the specific account. So for instance, if you're trying to drive revenue, looking at the total revenue metric, return on ad spend metric will be of use. However, if your goal for your business is to push product, then you might be more interested in transactions. However, if you're looking to maximize efficiency, trying to get more bang for the buck, then looking at something like return on ad spend, cost per acquisition, that might be more useful for you. And also, you just might be interested in getting more foot traffic to your site, or just to increase your brand recognition. In that case, things like clicks and impressions will matter. And oftentimes, especially for like e-commerce accounts, you're going to find that there's going to be several goals here at play. And so you're going to have to consider several metrics, as JG had mentioned. And so that's really where it can get a little tricky. So in example 3, for this specific account, the goal is to drive product-based transactions and to push revenue. So you can kind of think, okay, drive revenue, so we want total revenue. We want to push product, okay, so so transactions are going to be important. But then always, when it comes to e-commerce, you don't want to spend too much money and not get enough in return. So return on ad spend is at play here. So again, remember back to the example, transactions increased year over year, revenue increased year over year, but the return on ad spend had decreased. So just based off the high level metrics, it's really difficult to tell what's going on. So what we need to do is break it down. So the first thing I decided to do was break things down into branded versus product, because the client was very specific that he didn't want us to focus on branded, because he was quite confident that branded will do its thing. Let's just push product, because that's where the need is. And so I broke out the total transactions year over year by branded and product. And what really stands out to me on this slide is that year over year, we increased product transactions over 400%. So based on the client's goal of wanting to push product-based transactions, it looks like we're doing very well in this area. As for branded transactions, it stayed relatively the same, and we decreased by a couple, but it's pretty much the same year over year. So the next thing I did was to look at revenue because the client wants more revenue. And I broke it down in the same manner, looking at branded revenue and product revenue. So two things stood out to me here. First was the increase in product revenue year over year. We increased it over 336%. So again, along with the increase in product transactions, this is another positive sign that we're meeting the client's goal, we're moving in the right direction. However, I'm looking at branded revenue and noticing that it decreased over $4,000. So I'm looking at this branded revenue, the drop in branded revenue, and I'm looking at the decrease in total return on ad spend. And this just indicates to me that I need to dig a little bit deeper into this total return on ad spend. So dig I did. I basically looked at total return on ad spend, and I found that it's not all that it seems to be. And I broke it out in the same manner that I did to transactions and for the revenue. And so the two things that popped out at me here was first the difference in product return on ad spend year over year. Product return on ad spend in 2013 was 29%. So that's pretty inefficient spending right there. Year over year, we increased it 148%. So again, it's a great sign that we're moving in the right direction. We're becoming more efficient with our money. However, it's also indicating to me we're still not where we want to be. We want to be over 100%. And so this at least gives me at least a path of where I know I need to go. I need to cut some wasted spend on the product side. So a couple of the things that we did. First, I created a return on ad spend bid rule. So basically, keywords that we're converting and with the positive return on ad spend, we're going to bid those up, assuming they're not already in the top position. And then keywords that have had a chance to show and either are not performing or not performing with the positive return on ad spend, we're going to bid those down. But another thing to keep in mind is, again, what JJ says. You also have to look at the other metrics. You have to consider the funnel, look at click-assisted conversions, look at impression-assisted conversions to make sure you're not killing off some other part of your funnel. So considering that return on ad spend was a little off and seeing how our product return on ad spend was so great, it made me wonder, well, I need to look at the branded side of things. Even though it's not our primary focus, it is an integral driver of revenue. And so we need to dig a little deeper here. And sometimes there's a misconception that branded will behave the same year over year. And that's why oftentimes clients will want to focus more on the product side. But I would definitely recommend every so often looking at the branded side to make sure things are really operating in the same manner. So here I've just put forth some branded performance information here. Again, year over year, branded revenue decreased. Return on ad spend decreased a little bit as well. Costs and transactions were relatively the same, but what stood out to me the most was the average order value. In 2013, branded average order value was just under $200, and it decreased 20% year over year, so it was under $160. If you were to figure just that difference in average order value, that's pretty much the difference in why our branded revenue is down. And if you think about it, if you added just that extra revenue to what our totals were for 2014, our total revenue would be even greater than where it was. So what can you do with this information? You're saying, okay, well, we know that people are buying, they're just not spending as much. Well, one of the things that we're trying out in our branded group is that we have a generic branded ad group. So let's say Hanapin is the name of the brand. We have keywords just saying Hanapin and all the different match types. But then we're also creating specific branded product ad groups. So let's say Hanapin sold apparel, and let's say shoes were our most valuable products, that we got great return on them. So we would create a Hanapin shoes ad group, and we would take the landing page, instead of going to the home page, would go to the shoes page. And so this is one way we're trying to direct people to spend on the more valuable pages for us. But there's other things to consider. First of all, throwing more money at a branded campaign will not necessarily solve your issues. You could tell from the branded return on ad spend that it spends very little and brings in a ton of money. So, and oftentimes I find that branded campaigns are not limited by budget. So giving more money to it is not the issue. Even bidding it to the top position, once you bid it to the top, there's not much more you can do besides that in terms of just bidding and budget optimizations. Another thing you can look at is if you have access to it, is the back-end system, and evaluate the type of products being sold to Brandon. This is also something you can look at in analytics and kind of see what products are the top movers. But see, were different products offered? Were different? Was there just more in inventory last year compared to this year? And try to see what's the difference in what the branded people are buying this time around. And also, you're going to want to identify other types of advertising that may be affecting branded. JJ was talking about how other outside sources can affect your traffic. One of the things we did with the client is that we wondered if there was other advertising that was going on last year that they're not doing this year. And to our surprise, it was actually the other way around. They only did PPC last year, and this year they're doing more emailing and other types of advertising. So one of the things that might be happening is that the emails that they're sending out, they have a list of 10,000 people. These are 10,000 people that are familiar with our brand. And these are potentially 10,000 people who, if they wanted to buy something, potentially could have clicked on one of our branded campaigns. But since they have an email link that can take them to the page right away, they might be going and converting there. So it might be something to consider, just kind of consider the bigger picture there. Another thing to watch out for are those competitors. As the years go on, we're having more and more competitors come into the space, especially for PPC. One great tool that JJ mentioned was looking at auction insights, see what people are bidding on your terms. Even if you don't see necessarily a decrease in traffic, one thing you might want to think about is, let's say last year when someone searched for your brand, let's say someone searched for Hanapin, maybe it was only your ad showing on that search results page. This year, if you maybe do the same search, you might find yourself on the search page, but you find 2 or 3 other competitors. And what that's doing is it's allowing people to do some more comparison shopping. So they might click on your ad, look at what you have, and then they'll go and then click on a competitor ad and compare prices, and they may ultimately convert on a competitor's site. So even though you may not see the traffic decrease, you might just see people doing more comparison shopping and converting elsewhere. So the moral of this story for this specific account, high-level metrics are definitely something you must start with. Depending on what your goals, like I said, it might be 1 or 2 that you're looking at. But when you're trying to judge the performance of an account, it may not be best just to look at that level. You might have to dig a little bit deeper. So dig deeper is what we did for this specific account. We identified areas. We said, okay, product, you're doing better, but we know we need to cut wasted spend. Branded, you're also kind of skewing total return on ad spend because you're just making up a greater percentage of revenue in the previous year compared to this year. So it's something where it's good to kind of segment it out depending on what your goals are to kind of see where you should make optimizations. And then lastly, branded isn't always a given. Again, your primary focus might be on other areas, but definitely you need to understand how it affects overall performance, especially if it's a driver of revenue for you. So I believe that's it. JJ, you want to take this?
Sure. Well, Rupert, first of all, thank you for a great case study. I think that it really highlighted. I think it really highlighted the way that that you look at all your your program and kind of look at everything all together. So thanks for that. Today we have a special offer. You can enjoy 30 days of Hero Pro tools for free. You can get access to our Ad Guardian, Broken Link Checker, and Hero Pro's trio of bid adjusters, plus 4 other AdWords tools and 20 AdWords scripts. So start your free trial by going to secure.ppchero.com/user/signup and just click on account and select professional plan, and then just enter your promotion code Hero Pro promo 4830 29182. 29182. Thanks.
All right, and I can, as someone who actually uses these tools, these have definitely, like I mentioned earlier, have made just my work in the accounts much more efficient. The Ad Guardian especially, actually just happened this past week. The website was down for a little bit of time, and instead of wasting dollars with our ads still showing, it automatically pauses your campaign. So it's definitely something to take advantage of, and especially since it's only available for a limited amount of time here. All right, now we're on to live Q&A. Let's see what the first question is. So the first question, JJ, you might want to handle this one. It's, what are the spy softwares you can use to see what the competition is doing?
Sure. So there's a few of them that are out there. I've used Spy. Yeah, and when you get into that, you can get all types of data about what keywords their competition is using, what ad copy they're running, and how long that ad copy's been running. It's been really really helpful.
Okay, so this person wants to be able to track keywords back to leads. When a lead comes through attributed to a specific keyword. JJ, I think you might be, are you doing some of this with some of your lead gen accounts?
Yeah, we have been doing some funnel analysis. Yeah, we've been learning an awful lot on what keywords to keep up and running and how they sort of relate to each other along the conversion path.
So another question is, so you basically see that you need to make optimizations within your account, like we saw for the product side. What, besides having bid rules, what are other things that you could do to kind of cut wasted spend? So one of the things you could do is just run a search query report. As JJ mentioned, that's a good area to kind of look for negative terms you don't want to advertise on, as well as look at for things that are converting, you might want to add as a keyword. So you would do a search query report, maybe for like the past 90 days, depending on how much business your account gets on a daily basis. What I did was I would filter for at least 40 keyword or for search terms that had 40 clicks and 0 spend. And so here I would just, 0 conversion, not spend. So it's basically, it's spending money, it's not converting. And what I would do is I would also add an additional filter to see if there are any click-assisted conversions, because like JJ said, we don't want to kill the funnel. And for those keywords that are spending and not converting and not assisting anywhere in the funnel, I would consider either substantially reducing the bids or pausing those keywords altogether. And you can do something similar at the keyword levels too. You can run a keyword report. I'd probably run it for a much longer period of time, maybe 6 months. And I would search for keywords that have, let's say, at least 60 clicks, 0 conversions, maybe again filter for, let's say, less than 2 impression assisted conversions. And for those that are spending quite a bit of money, I would pause or reduce bids there as well. So the next question, how do you identify CPA for phone leads? I'm assuming this isn't if you don't have call tracking in place. JJ, do you have any thoughts on this one?
That one is kind of a tough one if you don't have any tracking in place. Fortunately, with the accounts that I have, even though we're not using a standard call tracking system, just proprietary software that our clients are using is letting us be able to measure that. It's a really tough one. I haven't been able to find a good way to measure it without having some sort of tracking system in place.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think if you're able to, definitely putting call tracking in place, and that will make that much easier to follow there. Okay, so we're just going to bring back a special offer slide just to give you enough time for people to look at the promotional code there and take advantage of it. JJ, do you use some of the Hero Pro tools in your accounts?
Actually, some of my accounts have been a little bit too large to actually be able to load into Hero Pro. I did use it quite a bit in the beginning, and one tool that I found helpful is the is the Ad Guardian. So this way, if your account goes down, it pauses your keywords. That's helped me out a couple of times. But some of the other stuff I haven't been able to use as much just because with so many tens of thousands of ads, it would be very tough for the system to compute all that.
Oh yeah, JJ, could you just do one more favor? The spy software, are you able to just mention what those websites were again? I think we had a little bit of a hard time hearing that.
Sure, spyfoo.com and keywordspy.com.
And I'll add to that SEM Rush as well. Also works. The only thing you get very limited access without having to sign up, and it will time you out after a little bit of time. But you can get some good information on what are some of the keywords that your competitors are bidding on and things like that. All right. So if you have any more questions, feel free to reach out at the hashtag ThinkPPC. You could also get a free solutions blueprint from Hanapin Marketing for accounts greater than 20,000 a month in ad spend. You can reach out there at the www.hanapinmarketing.com/solutions blueprint sign up, or you can contact us directly at marketing@hanapinmarketing.com. We want to thank all of you for attending our webinar and hope you found it very useful. Thank you.